Hello everybody! Welcome to Craft Chocolate TV. I'm your host, Dylan Butterbaugh, and today we are going to be talking about tasting chocolate. And so one of the first things to know is I like to just have some water, warm, not cold water, just regular room temperature water. And your chocolate shouldn't be too cold or too hot. So that's also room temperature. Chocolate likes 65 to 74 degrees Fahrenheit. That's somewhere around 18 to 23 degrees Celsius. And that's when chocolate will melt appropriately, the fat won't be frozen. I remember the first time I was in the snow with chocolate, it was really interesting because the fat had frozen and it tasted so much different like that, and I did not like it as much. So chocolate likes to be somewhere around that 70-degree mark. I've chosen a couple different bars here, and a lot of that's because of either the process that they did or the thickness of their bars. We add cocoa butter. These companies do not. DickTaylor and Dandelion, they both, it's just beans and sugar. Now Dandelion does not roast very heavy. In fact, they roast really, really light because they want to show the beans as much as possible and only have 2 ingredients. So they don't add any butter. DickTaylor is, I don't actually know what they roast at, but they do roast a little more at a normal temperature, but they still only do beans and sugar. Whereas then we have somewhere like Manoa Chocolate and Labooko, which is Zotter, we both add butter. Now they add more butter, which is more of a European style. I find that in France especially, they add sometimes 15+% cocoa butter to the bar, and that's why you get this really melty, silky, smooth texture, which is nice, but sometimes you can overdo it and you're gonna start washing out the flavor of where those beans come from, which is the opposite of what Dandelion and DickTaylor are going for. Now we add somewhere between 5 to 10% butter depending on the beans that we're working with. We really want to keep as much of the original bean origin flavor, terroir flavor as possible, but we like the flavor, the texture that comes with the butter. And then we have Herufek, which is in the Czech Republic. And I really like, besides making good chocolate, they also have a really nice thin mold, which is great for tasting. I like thin pieces when I taste chocolate. The only drawback to this is that it's really difficult to keep it in one piece. When you try and ship it, they end up breaking. So these are 5 different bars that all have very different styles of chocolate making. And yeah, let's do a tasting. All right, so I'm opening up a bunch of these bars and I'm analyzing the packaging. DickTaylor just went to flow wrapping, which we've been doing for a few years now. It makes a lot of sense because we found that most people don't want to stay up really late packaging chocolate bars, especially when you get into the thousands a day. So they're super classy. They always do a really nice job on their packaging. So their flow wrap is also quite beautiful, just like their mold and their outer package. Very well done. Dandelion, they're amazing because they're making a lot of chocolate bars and they're still hand packaging, which is admirable in a lot of ways. Okay. Oh, we got some blooming because I brought it back from Europe. It's okay, half of it's fine. Zotter is very artistic. They have Joseph's friend is an artist, his best friend growing up, and he does all the packaging for them. They also made it like a book, little Labooko bars. There we go, and we know what our bars look like, so we're gonna put those aside. All right, so plenty of added cocoa butter, no cocoa butter. The better the beans, I find the more you can get away with doing a minimum amount of work. It's harder to screw up. These are the Tanzania beans from Coco Camili. I think they're wonderful. I really like fruity chocolate. I also pulled out one of their new bars, the Animalai India bar. I also thought that was really good by Dandelion. So we're gonna try this now. And you're not gonna get the same kind of creaminess in the chocolate, but you're gonna get a lot of flavor because they're roasted really light. So I like to chew it up a few times, and then I start to move it around and really let the flavors start to go across my palate. And a good chocolate will have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And that's our roast. I need to go stop our roast. We're roasting some Kona beans right now. I will be right back. All right, so this beautiful fruit note, I really like the acidity in it. There's a lot of acetic acid in it, but there's also a lot of other acids in it that bring out different fruit tones. So citric acid and things like that. So I'm a big fan of the cocoa camellia beans, just because they're so much different than what we'd imagine, most people imagine chocolate to be. We're accustomed to thinking chocolate just tastes like chocolate because most of it's mass produced. And this is a great example of something that's not. Bright fruit, good contrast. Now, all these are also around the 70% range. So this is 75%, this is 72%. Dandelions are both 70%. Ours are all 70%. DickTaylor's here is 73%. And that's a really nice percentage for making chocolate and tasting chocolate, because you can taste a lot of the nicer characteristics that are in the beans, the subtleties, the nuances that we want to express. If you have too much sugar, you don't taste that anymore. If you have not enough sugar, the overpowering flavors from nibs can be maybe a little too bitter, too intense to actually taste some of those prettier notes. So this 70 to 75, 70 to 80% range is one of my favorites, and I think it's for all these other makers as well. They see the same thing. So chocolate connoisseurs will tend to like this 70%, 75% range of chocolate. Let's go ahead and try another one. See, this is very thin. I love tasting chocolate that's thin because it melts really nice. You really get the flavors released faster. The only problem is they tend to break in shipping, so it's tricky to work with. Yeah, I think they do a great job. We went and visited them after the Eurobean Chocolate Festival. Herufek is in Moravia, I believe it is, in the Czech Republic. Beautiful area, rolling green hills, lots of orchards, and they've got a great little chocolate making setup at their place, and they're doing a good job. The trick is you have to get good beans, and everyone here has figured out how to get good beans. Now Zotter has been around a lot longer. We got a lot more science in their approach, and they are a more European style. So they add, I don't know, maybe 10 to 15% butter. I'm just guessing here, which I like, but you can't taste as much of the beans as, say, in DickTaylor or Dandelion. And really nice texture. They've got some great machines. They've got a Buehler line. Now the one I'm trying now is their Peruvian. I almost always love Peruvian beans. For whatever reason, that country has got great terroir, great genetics, and a consistent quality that is being produced. So almost anything you can find out of Peru is pretty good right now. Yeah, the butter helps carry the flavors a lot farther for me, and feels really nice on your tongue and your mouth. So, Zotter's great. Besides being probably the coolest chocolate maker and factory in the world, it's a pilgrimage that every chocolate maker should go and visit, or even consumer. It's as close to Willy Wonka as this world's got, is Joseph Zotter and the Zotter Chocolate Factory and family. Okay, so another thing to note when you're eating chocolate is you want a really good temper. Otherwise, the fat has separated from the solids, the cocoa solids, and it's going to taste differently. It's not going to taste quite right. So you'll get more of this powder, chalky texture, and the flavors are all out of balance. So if it looks like this, it means it's been exposed to too much temperature, whether it's too hot or too cold, and you get this blooming effect. We notice when it's red, it's been too hot, and when it's more white, sometimes it's been too cold. This is what we notice a lot when we're actually molding the chocolate bars and we're starting to see problems, because it has nothing really to do with age. It's more temperature fluctuation. So this is not going to taste as good just because it's out of temper. You really want something that's going to snap. You can see inside, it's all really solid. It's held together tightly, the crystals that is, whereas this will be a little looser and the fat has bloomed. So you want chocolate that is not out of temper. If you see it like this, just melt it. It's kind of like your peanut butter that's risen to the surface. You just have to mix it back in. In this case, you'd want to melt it first. And you could just dump it into any type of mold and put it back in your fridge. It'll still melt quickly on your fingers because you didn't get the right crystal structure. One crystal is maybe more dominant than the other. But you can always watch a YouTube video on hand tempering and play around. It's It's fun to do at home and messy, but worth experimenting with if you have chocolate that's out of temper. Okay, so this was another episode. I hope it was very helpful. And cheers. Happy chocolate tasting.